Hello, from the University of Alabama in the USA. My name is Susan Carvalho, and I'm the Dean of the Graduate School here at the University of Alabama. I work with admissions to all of the master's and doctoral programs, and I'm very glad to be here today, virtually, to talk about funding for your future graduate program in the USA. I'll talk a little bit about my university, but mostly I'll talk about all universities and give you some advice. So I will talk for 15 to 20 minutes, and then I will stop so that we can have discussion. And I also have some valuable links in the chat box for you. So please copy those and save those. The University of Alabama is in the southeast of the U.S. It's known as the university where legends are made because we have some very famous traditions that I can tell you more about through email if you contact me after the talk. We're located not far from Atlanta, Nashville, Memphis, New Orleans, and Miami, as you can see on this map. So when we talk about funding, many people ask me, how can I get money? So one question is what kinds of support exist? But a more important question is how can I get that money? So at the end, I'm going to give you advice about how to ask for these kinds of support. But before that, I want you to know what kinds of support there are that you can ask for and explore. There are some external sources of funding, and here are 4 websites that can show you different ways of financing your education in the U.S. Each of these sites is a window into other websites that can show you sources of funds beyond the university itself. It's easier to get funds within the university, but there are many ways to get funds from beyond the university. Another page that lists a lot of sources for you is the webpage of the Capstone International Center at the University of Alabama. The links at this website are for external sources, but they're all collected for you in one place at the University of Alabama's Capstone International Center. So this link will take you to many resources. I'm going to show 2 slides that will just show you examples of the kinds of resources available at this link. Here is a list: Education USA, AMIDEAST, IREX, American Councils. These are many sources you can explore. And here are some more that offer loans to international students specifically. So these are not banks. These are companies that build programs specifically so that international students coming to the U.S. can borrow money and then set up a payback schedule. Again, all of these resources are listed at the Capstone International Center link, which I have put in the chat box and which you just saw. Okay, so what about sources within the university? There are generally 4 types of university-based financial support, and I'll talk about them in this order: fellowships, graduate assistantships, scholarships, and campus jobs. And I have put these in order by what is the most desirable and the least desirable in terms of financial advantage. They're all good, but a fellowship provides much more funding than a campus job will. And so I'll explain the difference between these 4 terms. When you talk to a university, often you want to ask, do you have scholarships? But that's not the best question, because you can see that scholarships are number 3 on this list. It's a better question to ask, do you have fellowships and assistantships for your graduate students? And I'll explain why that's a better question than just, do you have scholarships? How can you learn which of these is available not only at the university you're applying to, but in the department you're applying to? You have to go to the department's website. This is your most valuable resource for looking for financial support. And it is very, very smart to look at the webpage before you ask the question to the department. And the reason for that is this is graduate study, and you need to show that you've done your homework. not just asking a question out of the blue, but show that you've done your homework. So go to the department webpage, and then every university, most universities also have a graduate school, and the graduate school may show you other resources. Look for the graduate program director or the director of the graduate program, someone whose job it is to answer your questions. Many, many international applicants tell me, I wrote to the department, but they didn't answer. Well, it's not their job to answer. It's only the job of one person, and that is the director of admission or director of the program in that department. Now, if you're applying for a PhD, then you should also write to the professor or 2 or 3 professors whose field of specialization is similar to what you want to do. So they may have work opportunities in their labs or with their classrooms, and you can get financial support directly from them. If you're applying to a master's program, I would not recommend that because they may not answer. And again, the graduate program director is the person who can tell you the most about resources. Okay, so I'm going to go through the 4 kinds of aid: fellowships, assistantships, scholarships, and campus jobs. The reason I said that fellowships are the best kind of financial support is because you don't have a work obligation with fellowships. They simply pay you. Not only do they generally fund your tuition, but also a paycheck on top of that. So these are obviously only for students with the highest merit, the most competitive students in our applicant pool. So at the University of Alabama, for example, the top 5% of applicants in a program might be offered a fellowship. Because these are awarded centrally, they often depend on high GRE scores or high university grades. If you don't have either one of those to show, it's very difficult to get a fellowship, and you might look more closely at assistantships and scholarships. At the University of Alabama, a fellowship covers your full tuition cost, as well as a paycheck, a stipend, that is anywhere between $20,000 and $40,000 for the year. And it also pays for your health insurance, which is very important in the US. So essentially, your full education is funded if you get a fellowship. Because they have no work obligation, they give you more time for studying and for getting ahead in your classes. Sometimes they are just 1-year fellowships, and then you would get an assistantship for the subsequent years. Sometimes they are multi-year fellowships, and sometimes they can be combined with an assistantship so that you have a workload, but it's a reduced workload. So in the end, fellowships are the best kind of support you can look for. And ask your department, how can I be a fellowship candidate? Am I a competitive fellowship candidate? Again, look on the website before you ask your questions to show these professors that you know how to do research, you know how to do your homework. Now, this really goes into the advice category that I'm going to say at the end, but it's very important that you don't ask for money at the beginning of building your relationship with the department. You need to talk about your qualifications before you ask if you can have a fellowship. And because fellowships are often GRE driven, I recommend that you take some practice tests for the GRE so that you know what kind of questions to anticipate if you hope to land a fellowship. Okay, so that's category 1. Category 2, graduate assistantships, which again come in various types: teaching, research, or general graduate assistantships. These are the categories used at the University of Alabama. Teaching assistantships involve 20 hours of work in a classroom or helping a professor teach a class. Maybe you're grading the work or leading discussion sections or supervising the lab. And so if you do that work, it's related to your professional field. It's giving you good professional experience, and it's also paying your way through your graduate program. Because a teaching assistantship not only pays you a salary or a stipend, but it also covers the full cost of your tuition and your health insurance. So that is a very desirable kind of award. These are common in the humanities fields, and maybe in the first year of a STEM field, but not so common in the later years of programs like engineering. Don't be intimidated by the idea of a graduate teaching assistantship, because there is a lot of support to help you do this well. Research assistantships are more common in the STEM fields, and these involve work in a lab rather than in a classroom. But other than that, they're very much like teaching assistantships. They pay a salary and your full tuition and health insurance. And again, provide you with valuable professional experience. And then some universities offer general graduate assistantships. These might not be in the department. They might be more generally related to the university. And these are hard to find because there aren't as many of them as there are of teaching and research assistantships. But you might ask the program director this question: are there graduate assistantships outside the department for which I would be eligible? This is a very important question to ask. The work might involve tutoring other international students, or it might involve work with different communities of students on campus. For example, in our graduate school, we hire graduate assistants to help with our financial work, with our marketing work, and with mentoring underrepresented students. So those are just some examples of graduate assistantships. Okay, scholarships. This is the first word you had in mind, but remember that to me, this is the third category, not the first category you should ask about. Scholarships can be full or partial, and as you know, they simply pay part of your tuition, which is a very good thing. They don't generally add a paycheck for you on top of that. So you still have to supply the money for your rent and your food and your travel and your books. So nonetheless, scholarships can really reduce your financial burden. So I strongly encourage you to ask about them. And I'm going to give a little advice because I can't resist giving advice. Do not talk about your need when you ask about scholarships. So many applicants say, and I really need this scholarship. I can't come without the scholarship. It's essential for me to get a scholarship. That's the wrong approach. The best approach is to talk about your merit, your qualifications, what you would bring to the program, and then ask, are there scholarships available for students like me? So it's not just, are there scholarships? It's, am I a scholarship candidate? And what will make you a scholarship candidate is not just how much you want it or how much you need it, but how much you deserve it. Because scholarships are given by a university in order to attract the most talented students to their program. So their question is, how talented are you? So how can you go about answering that question as you email with the professors? And remember that every email is part of your interview for a scholarship, whether you realize it or not. I'll talk more about that in the advice section. Campus jobs are the fourth area of support. Many people ask about these. There are campus jobs, but you often cannot apply for them until after you've been admitted to the university. This might involve working in the library or other campus facilities, and it will pay you an hourly wage. But there are two disadvantages of campus jobs. Number one is that it won't be enough money to cover all of your rent and food. But it might cover your rent, but it will not be enough money to pay all of your tuition. So campus jobs are desirable, but don't depend on those alone to fund your education. If you plan to take out a loan, they can reduce your loan amount. So it's still very good. Okay, now the advice, because I think I have, 5 more minutes. So this is important because you can find sources of money on websites, but you can't get this advice on a website. So I hope you're listening carefully. Do not ask about money in your first email. I understand why international applicants want to ask about money in the first email. It's because you don't want to waste any time with a university that doesn't have any money for you. You know that you need it. So if they don't have it, well, let's just not waste each other's time. But if you ask about money in the first email, it's like going to a job interview and asking the first question, how much are you going to pay me? When they haven't even decided if they're going to hire you. So think about this like a job interview. The first thing you have to do is present yourself professionally. The second thing you have to do is impress them and make them want you in their program. The third thing is to start talking about money. That's number 3, not number 1. Second advice, ask the right person or you won't get an answer, and it can be very discouraging. So number 1 person you should ask is the program director within the department. Now at the University of Alabama, if you can't find who that is, you can write to me. I will find that person. So my email address will be on the final slide. Remember, if you're a doctoral student, you should also introduce yourself to your major professor, and you should do that as if you're presenting yourself for a job, not just asking for money, okay? Read the website first, because if you don't, it will not present the professional, impressive perspective that you need to have for that department. Another piece of advice, figure out why this university is a good one for you. If you're just look like you're just fishing for money, the university will not be impressed. The professors will not be impressed. One of the things you'll have to demonstrate is that you know the program well. You know the professors, you know their strengths, you know why you want to study there, how your interests match the professor's interests, and you have chosen this university as your destination. So a generic email, like sending the same email to 5 different universities, will not be impressive. Instead, study the faculty profiles, show you're serious, show that you've done your homework, and remember, every interaction is part of your interview, whether you realize it or not. So no informal text style emails. Everything should be very professional and careful. Remember, if you get multiple offers of funding, to check the cost of living in that area. You can find cost of living calculators online that will compare the price of apartments, for example, in different locations. And then as you're finalizing the conversation, a good question to ask is there summer funding as well? Most international students really can benefit from staying in the US for 11 or 12 months and getting summer funding, not only the 9-month funding. Another piece of advice, apply before you ask about money. Because as soon as you ask about money, remember, they're thinking, well, how talented are you? And the first thing they're going to do is look for your application to see how talented you are based on your transcripts, your statement of purpose, the letters. So apply, then ask about money, then let them look, and they will give you the answer that you're hoping for. And also, when you write to them, it can be helpful to give them some information about your university, not just about you, because maybe they're not familiar with your university. So if you say, I am at the number 3 university in Turkey, that's going to be very meaningful to a professor who might not be familiar with the different ranks of universities in Turkey. How can you provide this context? In emails, but also in your statement of purpose, which is really your opportunity to show how talented you are. Anything that makes you look more professional, more talented, more excellent should be worked into your statement of purpose and also your resume. August intake or September intake is the best chance for funding. Applying early is very important because each professor only has a certain number of assistantships, and when they're gone, they're gone. So I recommend December, January applications for August or September intake. And master's candidates who are thinking about PhD may have a stronger chance of funding. Final piece of advice, I've said it several times, but it's because it could not be emphasized strongly enough. Do not talk about your need, talk about your merit, talk about your qualifications, your achievements, what you would add to this program, not just what this program can do for you. So I hope that is helpful. Remember in your statement of purpose that it's your chance to shine. So talk about what you have done that shows you will be successful in this program. Talk about what you want to do and how that will fit with this program. and why the program is the right one for you, mentioning what you've seen on the website. That is your best way to get funding. Okay, here is my email address, Susan Carvalho, scarvalho@ua.edu. Please feel free to reach out to me. And finally, I want to just share a 30-second video about the university, and then I will take questions. I think you'll enjoy this. Okay, that's my presentation, and I'm going to ask our organizers at IEFT to stop the screen sharing. I think they asked me to let them do that, and I am here to answer your questions. So I'm looking at the chat box, and I'm waiting for questions.
Can you hear me, Susan?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I closed your screen share.
Thank you. So will the questions be verbal or in the chat box?
Answer them by verb.
Okay. I have the chat box open, so I'm clicking on questions, but I can't see it. Can you ask me the question? Hello?
I lost my connection. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I'm still here. I thought it was me.
Don't worry, it wasn't you. So let me check the system if there is any questions.
Yes, because when I click on questions, I'm not seeing anything.
I see one question there. Would it be a good idea to talk about our extracurricular education?
That's a very good question. Shall I answer that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Extracurricular information is really only important if it shows two things. Number one, your professional expertise. Number two, if it shows leadership and teamwork. So if you say that that you really like hiking and canoeing, no, please don't talk about that because you need to use your time while you have the professor's attention. You need to use the time to sell your professional qualifications. So extracurricular things like a job or a research competition or a professional volunteering of some kind, yes. But hiking, no. Now, sometimes if you're a team captain and your team won a championship, that can be important to highlight in a statement of purpose. It's interesting and it makes you look like a successful leader. But not if it's irrelevant. They don't really benefit from just knowing you as a person. They have to know you as a professional. So keep that in mind. Another question?
Well, for now, I don't see any more questions, but students can be shy sometimes. So let's give them a few minutes and they will ask questions, I think.
Well, that will be fine. And I will be glad to continue talking.
Sure, yeah.
Again,
If there is anything you want to tell about, you can definitely talk about.
Okay, well, I can talk about the University of Alabama. We are very strong in the fields of business, engineering, and the sciences. We have many healthcare-oriented programs, and we have a lot of assistantships, and we have a fair number of fellowships also. So this can be a university where your education might be funded. For master's students in engineering, we generally do not have funding, but for all of our doctoral students in engineering, we do have funding. So investing in the master's level can pay off at the doctoral level. I hope that information is useful.
So, I cannot see, for some reason, I don't know why, I cannot see the questions, but my colleagues and people on the chat box, they say that there are questions on the questions tab. Questions tab?
No, because my screen is frozen.
Okay, that's probably why. Can you click on the refresh this page button?
Sure.
Does that work?
It says reload site. Do I want to reload the site?
Yes, please reload the site and then click on the green button again.
Okay, now I think I have signed in again.
Yes.
Can you see me?
Now, can you click on the questions tab?
Yes, I can. I see a question that says, if someone has a low GPA, is it impossible to become a graduate assistant? If your GPA is below the graduate school minimum, and our minimum is 3.0, so with a 2.8, it is probably impossible to be a graduate assistant unless you have some other exceptional qualification, like a high GRE score, professional experience, or some award or honor that will make you, that will give them confidence that you will be an excellent student. Someone asked, I hold an MA on TESOL and from England, so can I apply to the US with that? And the answer is yes. That is a very good qualification for applying to a PhD program in the US. Let me look for more questions. Would it annoy the director if we send too many emails? Or will it be considered an indicator of our willingness to get an admission? It will be annoying. So think again as if it were a job interview. If you think about the context of a job interview, you will have the right frame of mind and the right instincts. Remember that one-sentence emails are a very bad idea, because if you can't take the time to write, why should they take the time to respond? They will think that you're too casual and that you're applying to 200 universities, and so they're not going to take the time to answer. The more specific the email is about you and about that university and about why it's the right fit, the more likely they will be to answer. Next question, is GRE needed for every department in the US? No. And even in a university, some departments will want it and other departments will not want it. So you should look at the program and see whether they need GRE. I will say about the University of Alabama that we have waived the GRE requirement, not only for the August intake, but even for our January intake. The GRE will be back by next August. So if you're thinking about applying at the University of Alabama, August or January is your window for no GRE for many programs. Another question, can we say if someone does not have, no, I already answered that one. What is the minimum GPA requirement for the assistantships? And are there any exclusions? Well, again, the main thing the university is looking for is, will you be successful in our program? So sometimes it can happen that you have a low GPA, but your grades in the courses that matter most for that program are very high. And in such a case, there would be an exception. So if you are studying engineering and you had very low history grades, maybe they don't care so much about your history grades as long as your math and engineering grades are high. So look at your overall record and see how is the best, strongest way to sell the idea that you will be successful in the program you're applying to. That's the criterion. So GPA is one indicator, but it's not the only indicator. So then I see the question about assistantships. I think I have answered that one. So I think there are 3 new questions at the top. So I'm going to those. Is it possible to come in at the thesis level of master? Yes. I think I understand your question. Immediately after your bachelor's degree, you can begin a master's degree in the US. And most master's degrees have 2 options, thesis option and non-thesis option. And so I think I understand the question, but if I didn't understand it correctly, please type again and I will answer again. You said in master's degree in engineering, you do not give many scholarships or fundings. Is it the same for business? Yes. For business, scholarships are more available than assistantships. But to get a scholarship, you do have to have excellent qualifications because most master's students don't have scholarships, but the top ones do. Maybe the top 10% would get a scholarship. So think about how to make yourself competitive for that by showing your excellence, either your grades or your GPA or your work experience. Is it possible to find graduate programs without thesis? Yes, all of our programs have thesis option and non-thesis option. Many of our non-thesis master's programs can be completed in only 1 year. So that is true for business and for engineering. In 12 months, you can finish a non-thesis master's. And that's very desirable because there's no better way to cut your costs than by finishing in 1 year instead of 2 years. That's only 50% of the cost. Is GRE needed for doctorate program? Not all of the doctorate programs, but many of them. So we list which programs do and do not require GRE on our website, as most universities also list that on the website. And remember to thoroughly search the website before you ask the question to the department, because if your question to the department is, do you require GRE? And the first thing they think is, didn't you read the webpage? So if you can't find it, then when you ask the question, you should say, I searched your website and could not find the answer to this question. Do you require GRE? Then at least they know you tried. Is it possible for Fulbright alumna to be admitted with GPA below 3.0? Yes. Fulbright is such a strong qualification, really so impressive. Congratulations on that. And so you had a selection process to be a Fulbright scholar, and so you should highlight that and say that that's a better indicator of your potential than your GPA is. I think I have a new question. For field of social sciences, you can finish them within a year. It's true for business and social work, but it depends on the field. And so you would need to find out. often with an assistantship, you would spend 2 years instead of 1. And the reason is that you would be doing that 20 hours of work. And so you maybe want to take fewer classes, but if they're paying your bill, why not? So you might want 2 years in such a case. Okay. Any other questions I can answer? I'm waiting for your questions. And in the meantime, I can talk about the middle of the country. Since the University of Alabama is not on a coast of the US, I know that many students prefer coastal universities, California and New York in particular, or the Washington, D.C. area or Boston. In fact, I was born in Boston. I never thought I would be living in the South, away from the coasts, and here I am. I want to tell you that many times there's more financial assistance available at universities that are not on the coast, and that the cost of living is much lower. So I would strongly recommend that you look at a range of universities, including the University of Alabama. Any other questions I can answer?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So how is the student life on campus? Do they get to, I don't know, discover different kinds of social clubs, or can you talk about that a little?
I will, and what I'm saying is true of many universities too, so I'm not only talking about mine, but I love to talk about mine the most, of course. First of all, we have a strong international students network, and 2 strong features of that. Number 1 is a host family program, so you can be adopted by a local family and they will invite you to their home. These are families who want to know more about your country and your background, and they just like meeting interesting people. What we see so many times is when you go back to Turkey and eventually you get married, you invite your host family to your wedding, and then they get to see your hometown that you've told them about. This happens over and over and over again. So the host family connection is very strong, very powerful. That's optional, but it's very rewarding. And the second feature is we have an International Student Association and many subgroups within the International Student Network. So you can know other students and not feel like you're the only non-American around. About 10% of our graduate students are international, so there are a lot of them, and we want you to meet them. In addition to that, I will say that one of the first thing you find about the University of Alabama in Google is football. We are very famous for American football. Our team is called Crimson Tide, so you can see that on the wall behind me. Our color is red, so you can see that. But in Turkey, there aren't so many fans of American football, so why does it matter? It matters because it creates a kind of festival atmosphere throughout September, October, and November, where people want to meet each other and hang out together and celebrate the victories and gather to watch the games on TV. And so for a social network, more than for the sports side, it can be very attractive. It helps you bond, helps you make friends, makes everyone friendly, because we all are connected by the love of the team, even if we don't love the sport. I love the sport, but many places where U.S. football is not played, they don't love it so much. I hope that's helpful.
Well, sounds like fun.
It is a lot of fun. Yes, we do have a good time.
Okay, you have 5 more minutes, so let's wait a little bit more. Maybe there will be other questions too.
Okay. Remember my advice that it's better to apply first and ask for money second. And I know why students do the reverse. It's because it costs money to apply and you don't want to waste your time. But I repeat, every university has money. So if you ask, do you have money? Yes, we have money. The question is, do you have money for me? And the only way they can answer that question is by seeing your application. So we have a question about the Interdisciplinary Studies PhD. Did you see that on our website? Good for you for doing research. The Interdisciplinary Studies PhD gives you the opportunity to propose a field of study. So all you have to do is write a 1 or 2 page document that explains how you want to put together expertise from different fields to create a specialty. So if you want to combine a certain kind of engineering with a certain kind of business analytics to be able to study the feasibility of an engineering project in the future, you can propose that. I propose that I will take this from the business side and this from the engineering side and create a PhD. So then we help you develop a plan of courses that will make you an expert, and then you will write a dissertation eventually in that area and have a PhD. So it's for self-directed people who don't find exactly what they're looking for in the list of doctorates that we already offer. And they say, I wish you could put this and this and this together and give me the PhD that I want. And then we can make that happen. Another question about the MS in Marketing Analytics work experience. No, the work experience does not need to be in the US. But what's important in your statement of purpose is that you explain what kind of work experience you had. Like, what did you learn? What can you do now? How will that work experience help you be successful in the program? So it's on you to explain it. But no, it definitely does not have to be in the US. And actually, we like having the global experience in our classrooms because other students will be very interested in your work experience compared to their work experience. That's such a good question about minimum GPA, TOEFL, and GRE. At the University of Alabama, the minimum GRE is 300, but remember that we have waived that for August and January. Minimum GPA 3.0. But we understand that GPAs can be lower in Turkey, so some explanation will be good. And then TOEFL or IELTS, TOEFL 79, IELTS 6.5, or Duolingo 105. We are accepting the Duolingo test. I don't know if you know about that in Turkey, but it's on our website. And this is a test that you take on your phone at home, and it's less expensive. And in the current coronavirus world, you don't have to go to a testing center. You take it whenever you want. So that's an option. At the University of Alabama, we do not have fellowships for the January intake, only for August intake. And they have already been given away for this year. But you can think about next August. Is it recognized at all U.S. universities? Is what recognized? I'm sorry, at all universities. The GPA and GRE are the minimums are different at each university. So our minimum is 300, but that's not the minimum for every university or even for every program at the university. So I will conclude because I know there is another webinar coming, and I've been would like to stay within the allotted time. The main thing I want to say is please reach out to me with further questions or if I can help. I'm putting my email address in the chat box. So please, if you don't take anything else away from this, take away my email address and my openness to answer any questions you may have about the University of Alabama. And I'm happy to give you general advice as well, because I am interested in you accomplishing your goals and achieving your dreams. So thank you very much for attending. It was nice to meet you, and I hope to see you in the University of Alabama sometime. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. It was really amazing. We had a lot of interaction.
Excellent.
Take care.
I enjoyed it. Bye.
Bye.